Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome, everybody, to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. My name is, I guess it would be, like Kevin McDonald, but that's not why we're here. What we're here to do is we're here to talk to our guest, and I'm going to massacre, even though she's coached me quite well, I'm going to probably massacre her last name. But in any event, Anna is with us. And Anna, why don't you tell us what your last name is so that I don't screw it up from the get-go?
Sounds good. Hi, Kevin. My name is Anna Megrelishvili.
That takes a long time to even write.
It does.
I would love to see your signature, because that must be like forever.
I honestly don't write it all out. I just do the first three letters and then I do this fancy thing at the end because it just would take too long. But, I don't have a middle name. So my last name kind of makes up for it.
Oh, very nice. But, and you are coming to us from the great state, or the great country, actually, of Georgia.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Georgia, the country in Eastern Europe, and I currently live in the state of Georgia in the United States. So can be very confusing for people. Georgia to Georgia.
That is so interesting that now, did you plan that, or did that just kind of sort of happen?
Sort of happened. So I actually, when I first moved to US, I lived in Kentucky for 10 years. And then, God brought me to Atlanta and I fell in love with it. And I don't plan to move anytime soon.
Well, I'm glad that it didn't, but it gets a little humid there in the summer, doesn't it?
It sure does. But, you overlook some things because no place is absolutely perfect. But I love many things about the city. So I deal with the humidity part.
Except for where I live, it's absolutely perfect in every way, just like Mary Poppins. And with the only exception of it's cold and it's rainy and the traffic is terrible and stuff like that. Other than that, it's just perfect.
It's perfect. Perfect. I love your attitude.
And it's great to have you here because
thank you.
We are all, at least at some point in our time, in our life, we're all going, why am I here? It's in my opening. Why am I? Because I had that question run through. Why am I here? And what am I here to do? I know I'm here to contribute, and I know I'm here to create some kind of a legacy, but what could it possibly be? And it's always great for me to talk to somebody who has found that and is living that. And I'd love to tell your story about all of that. And starting with, I've interviewed a lot of women, and from my perspective, I'm guessing that 98% of them have gone through trauma in their growing up years at one point or another. As a matter of fact, I haven't run into one yet that says, oh no, my life was just perfect in every way. Because for whatever reason, and we don't need to get into that part, but recovering from that is a big deal, isn't it?
Absolutely. It shapes you. And how you build your life is affected by your childhood. And, I truly believe that same kind of similar story could happen to two different people in the world, but one person will react one way and the other will react another way. So it's very individual how a person is going to deal with their trauma. And so it's not a competition. Like I hear a lot of people comment to me because I've had a really, really traumatic childhood. And they would say a comment like, oh, my childhood was nothing like yours in comparison. So they try to compare it. And then I always stop them and say, listen, like this is not a competition. And then, just because maybe on a grand scale of things, like your childhood was not as traumatic, it doesn't mean that it could not affect you same or worse way than it has affected me. So it's really individual how people react, how they heal, and how the trauma affects their life. And so, just like you said in the beginning, I would say the first 30 years of my life, the trauma dictated my decision making, how I lived my life. And then I came across that kind of moment where I started asking that question, like, there has to be more to life. What's my purpose? And then, everything changed after asking that question. But I don't want to come across, just too fast into it. Let me know if you want me to just kind of go in more detail on the first half, and then kind of what happened and where I am today.
Well, I would like to more focus on where you are today and where you're going, because
Okay.
we could go chapter and verse, but the reality is,
Mm-hmm.
and tell me if this resonates with you. The reality is the past is the past.
Exactly.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
It is there. But what you can do is you can change who you are today and then moving forward,
Yeah.
because what happened to you was, well, what happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that you can do about that, but you can do something about the future, about today, living every day, and then the future of it. And that's where I want now.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, there are people, and I don't know if this is in your case as well. There are people who need therapy. They need a coach. They need somebody to help them understand why they feel the way they do about their past, so that they can set themselves up to let it go, so that you can live the
Absolutely.
life that you can make a change for yourself, for your family, for your friends, and all the people who know you, that can really add something. Does that resonate with you?
100%, because your past could be like a dead weight pulling you back, or your past could become the source of your greatest strength. And it's up to you what you're going to do with that. And I truly believe the way you said that, healing is incredibly important as part of growing up and overcoming whatever you might have gone through. So I'm no exception. I've gone through any type of therapy you can think of. I started in my 20s. I've gone through it. And so everything, has been gradual. And healing is really a journey. I think at the beginning, I always thought like I was going to reach some sort of destination, magical destination, that at the end of it, I'm going to say, oh, I'm healed and everything is great. But the reality of things is healing is a journey, and you really should be comparing yourself to yourself, not others, and see how you were yesterday, a month ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, and so on. And if you see the progression, then you're heading in the right direction. Now, I am gotten to the point now where I'm strong enough where I can talk about anything from the past. I can be that voice for women who've experienced similar things that I have. I can share that wisdom. I'm an open book. I talk about my experience with therapy. So I use that past as the source of light for others, to educate them, to encourage them, to inspire them. Now, with what's happening in my life today, I've gotten to a point where in my life, I put wealth acquisition as my number one priority. I grew up super poor. So then I focused on American dream, corporate career. And I had this big financial goal of purchasing a beautiful condo in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've been working toward it for over 10 years, imagine. And when I achieved my goal, I renovated my condo, I moved in. I had about a month of the happiness, the dopamine hit that we think is going to bring us that long lasting happiness and joy. A month later, I was sitting on my couch drinking coffee. And that's when I had that thought, well, now what? I'm back to feeling like something is missing. And I'm logical in the sense that I was like, this is unsustainable. if I keep living my life working for 10 plus years for the next financial acquisition only to feel satisfied and happy for 1 month, it is not worth it. The math is not adding up. So there has to be more to life than this. And so that's really was the breaking point, is when I achieved that goal. I was working, imagine 10 years of my life I was working toward that goal. And then I was like, well, now what?
That it's amazing to me how many people do have the exact same thought at one point in their life. Some it happens earlier, some it happens later, some it happens in their 70s
Mhm.
and 80s, but and it doesn't matter when it happens, because it's important that you recognize that you are special and that you can do anything you want to do if you choose to. But
Mhm.
there's a matter of choice involved, and like we were talking about, there's a real possibility that you could have, based upon the abuse that you suffered when you were a child, you could have gone into the victim mentality and lived there and said, "Oh, woe is me! I can't do
Mhm.
anything because I got abused," and then da, 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 da. And but you
Yep.
didn't do that. Why
Yep.
didn't you do that?
I don't see a point. I mean, it's in the past. If I allow my abusers to dictate my life today, I'm giving them power and I'm letting them win. And that's not what I wanted to do. And then, people always, so I might say, and it's a little bit controversial to some people, because Christianity teaches us to forgive. Many psychologists teaches us to forgive people because they don't. But I really think that we should be using sometimes different terminology, because if you, somebody who hurt you never asked for your forgiveness, why should you forgive if they never asked for your forgiveness? I think what we need to do is let go and don't carry that burden of hurt, resentment, anger toward that person. But if they've never asked for your forgiveness, why do they deserve your forgiveness?
I I tend to agree with you. I the more important thing is to recognize that the past is the past and to forgive yourself. That you are not responsible for what happened to you.
Right.
And a lot of people take that, well, I was not they make up an excuse as to why they can blame themselves and not forgive themselves for something that they had absolutely no control over.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you more. So, in my particular circumstance, my father was my abuser. And many people believe that the opposite of love is hate. But the truth is I feel nothing toward my father right now. And that's truly the opposite of love, is when you feel nothing. It's you completely let go. There is no more like for, there is no more resentment, anger, anything at all. You just say, what he has done is not okay. I can't justify his behavior, but I'm not going to allow him to affect my life anymore. And that's where you should be as a survivor of whatever circumstances of that happen in your life. Now, if a person is actively trying to make amends, he asks for forgiveness. That's when you should be truly working toward the forgiveness part. My father never asked for my forgiveness. I haven't spoken to him in probably, I don't know, 15 years. And so that's the thing. I've just moved on. I use that story to encourage others and show strength, because I talk about things that are dark, taboo, carry a lot of shadow in other people. And so I choose not to do that anymore.
And it is energetically important for you to live the life of happiness and love and of caring. And if
Mhm.
people do not fit into that role, that they're not willing or able, I think there's a mental component here. But
Yep.
if they're not able to be kind and loving and caring, then you need to do what you just need to let them go.
I agree with you. You make a really good point, because I've actually, since my kind of awakening, so to say, I reorganized my life, where currently in my life I only have people who I call plus people. So I did this exercise where I basically write down on a piece of paper all the people I interact with. And I started thinking about how do I feel around them. And if I felt good around them, I put a plus sign. And if I felt bad about them, I put a minus sign. And basically, I just stopped interacting with people with the minus sign, because I was like, I don't need to be surrounding myself with people who are bringing me down, draining me, because I'm truly trying to build a legacy, a mission that's bigger than myself. I really need like minded people to join and be next to me. And that's an incredible feeling when you live your life and only interact with people who bring you joy. You're really happy to see them and not draining. And, and I know a lot of people have to go to work where they might be resentful toward a coworker or a boss, and they don't realize how much of happiness that takes that away from them every day.
It is insidious because it feeds on itself, and it's not a healthy thing for you. And people are going to be what people are going to do what people do, and you just need to align. You would be better served, let me put it that way,
Mm-hmm.
better served by aligning yourself with people who not only you feel good around, but they love you and they
Mm-hmm.
feel good about you, and they are invested in uplifting you as well as themselves. And that's when you've got a really good group of people around, because
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there are some days that just don't go as well as other days, and you need some
Of course.
positive people to uplift you from time to time.
100%. I didn't used to pay a lot of attention to relationships. So again, in my almost feels like previous life, I really focused on my career. And I lived in Kentucky, like I said, for 10 years, and I left the state, and I do not have one friend in that state. Imagine. And now I'm in Atlanta, where I have so many incredible people in my life and truly a community that supports me. And my happiness level just increased so tremendously since I've really rearranged my life this way and started paying attention to relationships. And that's a really problem in our country right now. Our country as a society is very individualistic. So we love our space, we like our freedom. And the more and more with current society, especially after COVID, people are more isolated. So pre-COVID, there was this survey that was done, and 1 in 5 Americans responded that they feel lonely and isolated. And that's pre COVID. You can imagine that post COVID, it's a lot worse. And there's so much research that proves feeling lonely and isolated creates havoc in a person's life. So, one research says that it's the same as smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day. That's the kind of health effect it has on a person. There's another survey that basically estimated that as a country, we lose about $9.5 billion with a B in productivity due to people feeling lonely and isolated. And that translates into them missing work, being maybe on antidepressants, anxiety, all these things. And it is a number one reason why people become homeless. And so that's where I focus with my work, is building relationships around people to really empower them, elevate them, and get them out of their circumstances.
I think it's wonderful. Anna, by the way, Anna, your last name again is
Megrelishvili.
Megrelishvili.
You
I got
got it. That's it.
there we go. We need to take a break. We'll be right back with more with this incredible young lady, and one of the things that she talks about a lot, and we're going to talk about it when we come back, is socializing with like-minded people who can uplift you and take care of you and be a really good friend without all the negativity that sadly some people bring. We'll be right back. At 67 years young, I never thought I'd feel this good again. But thanks to Purium's Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle, to date, I've lost 37 pounds and gained energy, confidence, and a whole new outlook on life. This isn't a diet. Purium is a complete lifestyle change, giving me all the natural, organic, nutrition-packed superfoods that fuel my body, crush my cravings, and help me burn fat naturally without starving myself. No gimmicks, no guesswork, just a simple, proven system that works. Superfood shakes, detox support, and real results. If I can do this at 67, imagine what you can do. It's your time to feel better, look better, and live better with Purium. Let's do it now, and let's do it together. Go to www.positivetalkradio.net and click on the Transform You to get started. That's positivetalkradio.net. Transform You. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And we're talking with a great young lady. And by the way, you can't be, I was doing the math, and you're too pretty and too vivacious to be any older than, I don't know, 25, 26, somewhere in there.
That's Eastern European genes, Kevin.
Well, and welcome to America. And you've been here for a long time now, because you originally came from Georgia,
Yes.
the country, not the state.
That's
and now
right.
you're living in Georgia.
Mhm.
That's kind of a cool thing. But I love the work that you're doing, because you recognize that we are social animals. And social animals cannot be alone. I live in a 55 plus community. You have no idea how many of the older folks that are here who are on a fixed income, their family may be in another state or maybe deceased or whatever, and they just sit in front of the TV a bunch of hours a day, because they have nowhere to go, no money to spend. It's a very sad situation, and it's really great to develop a community of people, and they're working to do that here. But tell us about the community of people you've surrounded yourself with.
I agree with you. Community is incredibly important. Like I said, there's a trend that's happening in our country where it's getting worse and worse, and people are more and more isolated. As you know, many times families live in different states. They don't live close by. Before, you used to have, parents and children maybe living on the same block, and really having that community, where now it's really a lot more separated. Again, it's having really negative effect on our society, on our happiness level. And so I do my work in two ways. So I run an organization called Christian Professionals Network Worldwide, and there's two parts to our organization. On one side, it's a networking organization for professionals who want to increase their circle. They want to meet like-minded individuals. We host a variety of events. We focus a lot on philanthropy. And the reason why I do it, beyond the community aspect, people need to have purpose. You know that if we are lacking purpose, our happiness level is just not there. We need something as humans to feel good about and to be bigger than ourselves. And so I really try to build a community where I inspire everybody to get connected to a different mission. So we bring in different nonprofits that present. We do different volunteer projects and outreach. So we're really known in our community with the philanthropic outreach. And then we also have a nonprofit where we mentor those experiencing homelessness in Atlanta. Like I mentioned, what's called a relational poverty is the number one reason why people become homeless. And so when you survey somebody who's experiencing homelessness, 90% of them will put zero emergency contact. They're very isolated. They just don't have strong relationships. But that's what's missing, and really to help them get out of it. So I started looking at what's happening in our country. So if you look at a lot of shelters, many of them have recidivism rate between 30 and 70%. And so that means 30 to 70% of people who've experienced homelessness get out of it, will return back to homelessness within 5 years. And so if you look at it from the business perspective, that's a really not a great investment when 30 to 70% return to homelessness. You have a question?
Well, no, I'm just shocked.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and
I heard you gasp. Yes, yes. And then I saw, and this is not everybody, right? So but then I saw a specific homeless shelter that had less than 10% recidivism rate. So I always ask question why? Why is this shelter different than the other shelters I've researched? And the difference is that they organized their entire community as a community. So basically, they have everything on campus. So they organized it as a campus that has shelter and medical facility and childcare and church and mentorship programs. So everything is together. They have social workers who help them. They even have a housing program. So basically, everything that one might need is already there. And so, but the biggest, so that's the community piece again. And so then it really made sense why mentorship is so important to decrease that recidivism rate. So what we do, we don't reinvent the wheel. We actually partner with existing organizations, shelters, or organizations that help the homeless. And we come in and offer them, this is another service that you can offer for people you're helping. And so then we come in, I recruit my mentors through our networking events. So that's how the two tie in together. And then we basically create cohorts and launch them out with different organizations. So we're proving this concept in Atlanta, and our goal is to really launch this nationally. So we're opening a new chapter in Tampa, Florida this year, just to start proving that this concept, basically the same concept, can be applied anywhere in the country. And then our goal is to really have 60 chapters within 5 years. And the goal is to really bring in professionals for us to increase the sphere of influence and philanthropy in the city, and to recruit mentors for our mentorship program.
so, if so many shelters are having people that they help go back to homelessness within 5 years, why don't they change? Because it's obvious that what they're doing isn't working.
So there's many reasons why. So I'll tell a couple that I think. So one is, it's very difficult to change something that's been working for so many years one way. You know that change is difficult, and so it's been always done this way, and this is how the way things are. Second, the term relational poverty is a relatively new term. There's not a lot of research there. We're actually working on a research paper about it to publish, because we really want to become experts on this topic and how it has an effect on our society in so many ways. And so not a lot of people are putting two and two together, that the missing piece of the puzzle is that relationship poverty piece. So you can face, basically, many shelters, they focus on the physical needs. Of course, they're on if you know the Maslow's pyramid, like the bottom needs to be fulfilled before you can move up, and that's your safety, housing, your food, clothing, right? That needs to be fulfilled before you can move up to anything else, and that makes sense. But again, so families who are homeless get out of it, they typically are on what's called a poverty line. So in our country, it's estimated, about, different surveys say different numbers, but between 34 to 40 million Americans live on poverty line. So what that means, they live paycheck to paycheck. Should something unexpected happen, they won't be able to cover their rent. So if something happens, like loss of job, health issue, car breaks down, they don't have any savings or cushion. What will determine who will become homeless and who will not is whether they have relationships in their lives. If they have family members, community like church community, or friendships that can stand by them and cover their rent in the state of emergency. If they don't, they have no other choice. And it's interesting, and the more I learn about it, there's seen and unseen homelessness. What we most of the time think about is what's called chronic homelessness, which is people in the street. But what we don't realize that in our country, we actually have a lot of people who live out of their cars, out of long-term hotel stays or shelters. So we don't necessarily will see them in the street, but they are homeless and they need our help. And really, relationships is what they need for the long-term success.
The interesting thing about that is if you look, and this, if you look at the statistics, I think it's like 30% of everybody in the country has less than $1,000 in savings. And I don't know if those numbers are exactly right, but a large portion of us don't have much. So you're right. If the car breaks and it's going to be $2,000 and you don't have it, the car's going to sit. Well, you lose your job because you can't get to work.
Yep.
And if you're not on a bus line, I drove a bus for 12 years, and there were lots of people that exact thing happened to. Or like where I live in Seattle, rents have skyrocketed. And so if you are working at a minimum wage job or something like that, the rent takes a bigger bite of your income month by month. You
Yep.
can't get out of it. And then something bad happens. Your hours get cut at work. You're still working, but you're no longer able to get a second job. I mean, there's just so many variables about
Absolutely.
how quickly it can happen. And not the least of which, we need to take a break. But when we come back, we are going to talk about that because I'm going to play during the break. I'm going to play a commercial for you. I'd love to get your opinion on the other side when we come back. So you're listening to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Anna
Megrelishvili
is our guest. She is, I tell you, one awesome human being. And we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. That's my Eastern European accent, by the way. Just real quick, I had to throw that in. Anna oh man.
You'll get it by the end of the interview. Megrelishvili.
I wouldn't bet on it.
Right.
And so, I play that commercial a lot because this is the United States of friggin' America, for heaven's sakes. And we've got people that are homeless that by no fault of their own are they homeless, or they're a youth and they've been their parents had a problem, or it was drugs, or whatever it is, and we don't take care of our own as well as we should. I don't think. Why do you think we don't take care of our own?
All right. I might say
Have I
something
opened a can of worms?
Yes, maybe. But it is my opinion that as a country, United States loves doing what's called triage help. So triage help is when you feel good about going in one time to be a savior. So think disaster relief, or going to physically and feed the homeless, going on a mission trip. And it's wonderful and it's great, but sometimes we do more harm with this kind of help than we do good. There is this great book that explains it in detail, and I highly recommend to anybody who's listening. It's called When Helping Hurts. And I really believe that sometimes when we do this kind of triage help one at a time, we disempower people instead of teaching them how to help themselves. We really are this kind of savior that goes and fixes the problem for them. But oftentimes, once we leave, the problem goes back to the way it was because we never equipped people to help themselves. And so, like, mentorship program is incredibly difficult to sell as a volunteer opportunity because it's a 12-month commitment. And most people anymore, especially now with the younger generation, they don't like long-term commitment. You can look at it with how previous generations used to donate consistently to the same place, or they used to serve consistently for many years for the same place. It doesn't happen anymore. The trend is people like those kind of one and done volunteer opportunities where it's more about them feeling good about themselves versus really truly making a long lasting impact. And so I know it's not a pretty picture to paint, but that's kind of where we are and where we're heading. It's incredibly difficult to sign up people for a long-term volunteer project because it's a longer process to help somebody. You don't see immediate results, and we want that immediate gratification in everything that we do. And then back to the, I'm very familiar with the Covenant House. We have one in Atlanta as well. They're actually on our roadmap next to partner. But the mentorship program is incredibly important, not just to address the homelessness. Many of the children who end up homeless, they come from foster care. And so on our long-term vision is to replicate the same mentorship program with the foster care, because then we're catching them upstream before they would get to homelessness. And we have that strong mentorship program for them. Or they come from environments that's driven in poverty and abuse. So again, this mentorship program really, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can truly partner with different organizations. We chose homelessness because it is a fixable program, excuse me. Imagine in Atlanta, right now we have about 3,000 homeless, and we have over 4,000 churches in Atlanta, Metro Atlanta area. So literally, if every church adopted one person to help them, we could solve the problem. And it's the same thing with the foster care. I think a lot of people don't realize how solvable these problems are if we change our attitude on how we approach it. And instead of being a savior, we really equip people to help themselves, and we're just walking alongside with them.
And we're being of service to them and to the community.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard a startling statistic, and you're more versed in this than me, but in the foster care system, I was told that 25% of kids who age out of 25% of kids who age out of foster care have a high school diploma. 25%. And
Yeah, and they're on track to really continue with the poverty. Many of them become homeless. They are relationally poor because once they age out, that's it. They don't have any support system. They don't have a family. So they're definitely on our next, as we grow, foster care is on our next growth trajectory for helping, because we do need to pair up with those children before they age out and then end up no high school degree, no community, and then homeless.
And a lot of them can barely read because they went through so many schools because they were in several foster homes and kept moving about. And the other thing is, and this is what I just don't understand, is that one of the things that happens to those kids who become young adults and then they break the law, then they end up in being incarcerated. And then that costs society a lot more money to incarcerate these people who, because of the fact that they don't feel like they have any hope. Hope is a big deal. Community is a huge deal. And if they don't have any hope or community, then there really is no reason for them. And then the community that they find
It's
is
not the right
in
one.
is not the right one. It's
Mhm.
the guy in the prison cell,
Yeah.
and teaching them how to be a professional criminal. And
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a proven, so there is a nonprofit called CASA. I encourage listeners to look it up. But CASA, what they do is they become an advocate for a specific foster child. So people don't realize how broken our legal system is when it comes to foster care. And a lot of the issues come because of and I'm not as familiar with the foster care as I'm with homelessness. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I do know that when CASA becomes an advocate for a child, they go to court, they advocate, they expedite things, they fight for that child like their life depends on it. They have an 80% high probability for that child to have a stable home than a child who is not a CASA foster care child. And so it's proven if you have an advocate for this child, he will have a much better probability of having a nice home, getting education, making sure that he has relationships. And so there's so many examples that it has been proven. Big Brothers, Big Sisters with their mentorship program, mentorship and advocacy for people who are experiencing hardships works. And that's what we need to focus on.
And I wanted to ask you this, because you were born in Eastern Europe, and I have a friend who helped me with the theme song, as a matter of fact, and he's in Sweden. Now, in Sweden, they have a program where when you get out of high school, before you can go to college, you do 2 years of community service. And they've got a program where all the kids are being taught things over that 2 years. Because I don't know about you, but when I was 18 and I got out of high school, I had no earthly idea what I was going to do, and ended up just kicking around for a little bit. It would have been much, and nobody taught me how to do a checkbook. Nobody taught me how a bank account works, how credit cards work, and all of that kind of stuff. If we had a mentorship program that involved all kids for a 2 year period, and they could get the help that they need and to learn, it would be expensive to operate, no question about it, but I think the ultimate outcome of our society would be better if we did a program. Doesn't have to be that one, but something like that. Do you agree?
I mean, absolutely. I think, it's almost like in the US, the only option for after graduate high school is to go to college. Yeah, there's really no, it's really looked down upon to go to trade school, for example. And so to me, it's very interesting to see the trends. And we're soon going to have a lot of just unfulfilled needs like plumbing and construction, because it's just not a sexy professions anymore. People don't want to go to trade school. The only option is to get a lot of student loan and go to college, and then you might or might not like what you choose, because like you said, at 18 years old, who knows what they want to do when they grow up, right?
And statistics will tell you that most of the kids who get a business degree, they end up not using it, or a teaching degree or whatever, unless you're going to be specific about what you do. As an example, you're going to be a nurse, but the bodily fluids makes you throw up. Well, that's probably not a good choice for you.
Right. And it happens, right? I have a friend who was a nursing degree, and she realized later in the third year that that's not what she can do, and she then had to change majors. So it is difficult. So I agree with you. Like I think it's a great idea to do some sort of gap year, right? That's funded, and you can do things like service projects, just improving your skills, doing something good for your community. We could learn a lot from Sweden. I mean, they don't even like Sweden, I think, is the country that really doesn't have homelessness.
No, and because some people in our country will say, yeah, but look at their taxes. They're taxed real high. Well, they've got college paid for. They've got medical paid for. They've got all of these things that are societal based, that we all need as a society, and they help each other. They work together. He was telling me that they have bomb shelters there that are so big they're like a shopping center. and they've got stores down there, and they've got, well, he said one had an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And
Oh,
now this
wow.
is in a bomb shelter, and stuff. So it's the will of the people to do something grand for everybody, not, and in a capitalist society like we have, which we're kind of, but we're not really, because we've got Social Security, Medicaid, and all that kind of stuff. We don't treat it as, we don't treat each other with the dignity that I think we should, to make sure that we all make it, to get rid of the homelessness problem and the incarceration problem. They seem to go hand in hand quite a little bit.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that, I don't know if you followed, but last June, the Supreme Court of the United States passed the law making homelessness punishable by law.
Oh, you're
So
kidding.
I'm not
Really?
kidding. Look it up. Yep, last June is when it was passed.
So now, if you lose your job through no fault of your own and you become homeless, now you can get arrested for being homeless.
Correct. And this was really, it's not heavily enforced in majority of the country. So let me preface it by then, because I always keep an eye and ear for that. But I do know that this was heavily passed by California, because they wanted to get rid of the tent cities on like campuses. And so I know that California has done some enforcement of this law. I don't know about that many other states have done. I think, I'll be curious to see what Seattle does, because Seattle also has a large population of people experiencing homelessness after California. So
We have about 14,000 in the Seattle area alone.
exactly. So I think like if it's going to happen, it's going to just go California and then probably Seattle, just because of the sheer volume. It doesn't really happen just yet in Atlanta, but to the point, it's just going to perpetuate the problem. So you are homeless, then you get put in jail, you, let's say, serve your time in jail, you get out, now you have a criminal record, employment opportunities are slim. And so then you become homeless again, only to become incarcerated down the, I mean, it's like almost like this out of sight, out of mind solution. It's not a solution that's centered around humans, really. I mean, I just don't know that God wants his children to be punished that they cannot afford to have housing.
Well, you do know, of course, because you operate a Christian organization called the Christian Professional Network Worldwide. She's the CEO and the head bottle washer, and congratulations on what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it. But the thing is that in the Bible, in the Torah, in all of the great writings, it says, take care of each other and be
Absolutely.
kind to one another, and do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Mhm.
And that is the golden rule, as it were. And because there's no gold attached to it, apparently we've given up on the golden rule.
Yeah, I mean, I think deep inside, people do want to help. So I do have a lot of hope for humanity, because as I bring people into my networking community, I hear a lot of feedback that say something like, oh, I've been looking for an opportunity to serve and give back. So I truly believe, I choose to believe in goodness in humans. We just need to activate it. And
And and bless you, child, because that is how we're going to get out of this. It's the only way that we're going to get out of it, is to take care of each other. And
yeah.
and here's my advice. If you, like my dad, he retired at 60. He'd been an executive for a long time. He was Mr. McDonald, then he became just Jack. And then he didn't know what Jack was going to do with himself.
hmm
And
hmm
so he ended up sitting on a couch watching TV until the day he died. And don't let that be you. Go and volunteer. Go. There's lots of
Absolutely.
places that you can go learn some things and volunteer and mentor. I know that you think that if you're older like me, that you think that nobody pays attention to you anymore. That's not true.
It's not true at all. It's your wisdom. That's exactly what's needed. And you make a really good point. So there's different categories of people who, once they exit their career, they feel lost. They feel like they lost their purpose. So not just retired, but former athletes, they suffer
Oh, yes.
majorly once they exit, and they're still young when they exit, and suddenly they lose purpose. So I am currently working on figuring out a mentorship program with the Atlanta Hawks, which is a professional basketball team, and
Cool.
trying to reach out to them and see if some of their retired athletes would be interested in mentoring, because I think that would be phenomenal influence, because as an athlete you had to have such dedication and discipline for training, and same with former military who retire. Also, they often feel disconnected from their society because they've exited, maybe deployment for a long time. They lose purpose. So these are great categories of people who can really find their purpose through mentorship. And they have so much wisdom, so much discipline that they can help to whether they're passionate about working with youth or adults who are experiencing homelessness.
Speaking of wisdom, you got plenty of that going on, young lady. I got to tell you.
Yeah, thank you. I try. I try to do a lot of research, right? Like, I think it's very humbling to really learn the true reasons why people become homeless, just to learn their stories and just, I mean, I tell you, some of the things I'm learning, I was blown away by. So I'll give you one thing that just blew my mind is
Well, I'll tell
that,
you what, why don't you
okay,
hold that for the break, because we do
all
need
right,
to take a real quick break real quick. And
all right.
and also, I don't know if you know this about me, but I drove a bus in Seattle for 12 years.
You told me, yes.
And so I experienced the homelessness and the hopelessness of a
Mm-hmm,
lot of people and who didn't have $2 to pay for bus fare.
mm-hmm.
Which, can you imagine that if you have to steal a bus ride because you can't afford $2? And that happens here.
Yeah.
So Anna Megrelishvili.
You got it.
Yeah.
Close. That's close enough.
Meg Valley, really, go give it to me correctly, please.
Megrelishvili.
Perfect. And we will be right back. Go to our website, by the way, which is cpnworldwide.com, and talk to her. You're pretty dynamic, I got to tell you. We'll be right back. Hey, do you want your content to stand out and grab attention? Well, we've got the magic touch. Professional video editing that keeps eyes locked on the screen. Photo editing that turns ordinary shots into scroll-stopping visuals. Crisp, clean audio editing for podcasts, ads, and more. Social media posting and scripting so your content isn't just seen, it's remembered. And guess what? We've got even more amazing services waiting just for you. Whether you're a brand, a business, or a content creator, we help you show up and stand out. Spots are limited. Don't wait. Email us now or book a call today and turn your vision into viral-worthy content. Don't wait. Hit us up now. And you can visit us at positivetalkradio.net or kmmedia.pro. And we're back with positive. And yeah, that's right. I don't know who I am anymore. Positive Talk Radio with Kevin McDonald, and Anna is with us. And again, go to our website, which is cpnworldwide.com. You have a vision of creating 60 chapters in the next 5 years. I do believe
Well,
I believe that you're going to get that done.
awesome. Well, yeah, I think that it's necessary. I see that people are responding every time I hear, oh, we've been looking for something like this. So it really encourages me to hear that what we're bringing to our community is needed, and they take advantage of it. And so I'm really excited. So this year we're opening our second chapter. And so it's a great learning experience. It's growth that we're experiencing. And so really after we launch our second chapter and kind of learn the lessons that we need to learn. Next year is when we're going to really heavily start pushing and looking for local partners who want to come alongside with us and open a chapter in a different city. So if you, Kevin, ever decide you want to partner and do a Seattle chapter, let's talk.
Well, well, I'll tell you what. I'll go find somebody because I'm busy doing this,
I'm
and
joking. I'm teasing you.
well, and the interesting thing is that when you are passionate about what you do, and you're significantly younger than me, but when you're passionate about what you do and fully believe in what you do, you don't get old. You don't stop. You just keep going, and the energy that you bring is phenomenal, and we can all do that, don't you think?
I mean, absolutely. So I believe that each of us have a specific, unique gift that only we possess individually. So um, it's important for us to really figure out what is it that it's so unique about me that I can bring to this world. And I also believe that each of us are meant to do something specifically with our lives. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like me and start an organization or just have this big mission. It could be your mission is to be a great father or mother. It could be you need to be a great accountant. But once you're really aligned with your purpose, you feel like you're really not working. So the days are not dreadful. You truly believe that you're in the right space at the right time. Things kind of flow easier. And I don't necessarily think that it's always going to be a smooth ride and no issue ever. But I've had a situation last year where I got really close, like things were tough. I was dealing with betrayal and personal things and just things, when it rains, it pours kind of few months really. And I was at the end of just my rope and I felt like, should I just stop? I was just so burned out and depressed and everything. And I was thinking about it, and quitting this would have been an easier route in a sense. I could go back to my cushiony corporate job. I work 8 to 5. I don't need to worry about anything. But I knew that there's nothing else I'd rather do. So I would literally, if I won $300 million tomorrow and my bank is overflowing, there's not one thing I would change about my life. The only thing that would change is I would do things a lot faster because I have all these resources. So I encourage you to really imagine, a listener, imagine that you have a $300 million sitting in your bank account. How would you change your life? Most people will say, oh, I'll quit my job. I'll do this. So if your first thing is I'll quit my job, that means you're probably not in your purpose. That
Well,
means you really need to think about what it is.
exactly. I want to share this with everybody. If you're one of the ones who your work week starts sometime about Tuesday, or no, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, because now you're going to think about, you have to go to, I have to go back there on Monday. I don't want to go there. I hate that place. And so you now have ruined your Sunday evening because now you're stressed about going to work. If that's you, quit tomorrow. Go find something that you love to do. You, and Anna's exactly right. You were designed for something.
Mhm.
It's your job in this life to go out and find out what it is, and then to act on it, and then to do the very best job you can. And it may take 10 or 20 years to do that, but that's okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like my rule for life is to not have any regrets at the end of my life. That's my only rule.
That's what I say all the time, because there are so many people that do. And I've
Mm-hmm.
talked to a lot of people in hospice, and they say, if only I had, if my dad was that way, if
Mm-hmm.
only I had. And don't be that person. So Anna, we've got about a minute, and I
Yep.
want you to tell our audience anything you'd like them to know.
Oh, so many things, but I leave you with this. I really pray that each of you will have the courage to change the circumstances that you're unhappy about. You deserve better. You shouldn't.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I
Oh,
made a
and
mistake.
no worries. Just have the courage to change your life for the better.
And you know what? I believe this, and confirm this for me. If you change your life for the better and you live more energetically, it's going to change your relationship with your family, with your friends, with everybody that you know. And everybody's going to say, good God, Anna, what happened to you? You're so happy now.
100%. People can feel it and they just want to know what's your secret. And they're going to start asking you, like, what is it that's so different about you? And then you can share, I live in my purpose.
That's a great way to leave the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin@kmmedia.pro. Oh. Hold on just a sec.